best fielder here, but focusing very heavily toward those AP style champions and moving into a Talia ban as well. That's the setup for your Xin Zhao, your Pantheon, and the common pairings that we see in the jungle as well. Lucian taken off the board as well. So our jungle prio necessarily getting really relinquished through this draft, but leaving everything up on the table and removing a lot of crucial pairings with it as well.
I'm just so shocked that we're going to get through this first phase of bans and every single pivotal jungler is up. It is like, it's like a kid at a candy store right now if you're Tarzan.
Yeah.
I got to think like, what, Vi, Xin Zhao, wherever you want to go with this.
I think they leave it. I think they trade it. There's things like Varus is still open, Gwen and or Rumble's open for this. So Rumble first take here could happen. And even with all of that, Theory just clearly proving to be that little upper echelon higher than every single other jungler. And Tarzan picks it in, slams it in B1. So now you've still got Rumble open, still got Varus open. These, again, top of the ladder picks for those roles. Could easily just get picked up.
Nerfs be damned. Tarzan in his first game on the new season says, still going to rock this Neferian. As this draft goes on with all these intriguing matchup-based bans outside of the Nico and maybe the Gwen ban, I wonder how many just like S-tier LPL picks we're really going to get in this draft as teams are just willing to trade them. Look, I mean, this is Rumble Vi, the Fury. Like, we could see so many pivotal champions go off the board in game one knowing Fearless.
Yeah, I mean, Rumble Vi is like a surefire way to kill somebody at level 6, right? You cease and desist, put the equalizer on top, and then they're getting cooked, they're getting battered. It's really not easy for anybody to try to survive that. AL, though, I mean, we knew that Varus was still open. Surprised that Top didn't take it for themselves, and knowing that this Neferi is going to go jungle, they could have saved Vi for R3 and taken this Varus away. So they give it over to Hope. He's able to take this now down into that bot side, gives them that powerful 2 versus 2, gives them that poke as well as we move into the mid and into that late game. So now looking at Shanks for some potential AP threat because they aren't really going to be able to get it out of that top lane anymore. Jungle's already locked in for themselves. So whereas we may see Shanks default to Azir. Yep, most likely.
Fortune teller.
It's a Shanks classic first of all, and I mean it's just the go-to pick with a Varus as well.
All these chess moves are coming out in the opening game. That is such a telltale sign of how important these two teams think starting the right foot forward is. We talk about TES Game 1 woes. That's on the table, but AL knowing that they were able to take this Game 1 up against TES all the way back in the third very series of this Rumble stage. We round out the first stage of bans, though, with JackeyLove grabbing the Jhin, which we always like to talk about as a facilitator pick. But when JackeyLove plays it, this is a different kind of Jhin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just the way that he pilots it in the early game seems to be the way that gives him those advantages. I wonder what I'm looking at is for bans for AL here is to try and get rid of those mid lane picks and matchups. So Victor typically one of the answers that we see to Azir, but I wonder the Sylas flash from Creme earlier, whether they're trying to incentivize AL to ban away the Sylas in this instance as well. Double AD, double AP for top esports at the minute, you would like to think if they lock in an AP solo laner. But AL, I mean, either one of those now with the Yone taken off the board, your Sylas is available, the Victor's available as well. So one of those picks will be getting through, and maybe that's the one that ends up getting taken by Creme.
Going to be a big spot. How does Creme want to play in this counter pick with Shanks? We talked about how Creme, especially as of late in these last couple series, has kind of seemingly solved some of the solo lane woes that we see from all these Group Ascend teams that a lot of people point to as the issues with some of the inconsistencies. So Creme versus Shanks becomes a very, underrated matchup, knowing how much we want to hype up these junglers. So where does Creme want to go with that champion pool? Aurora plays really nicely into Vi's play style, enabling Creme and Kanavi to duo up around the map and look for pick potential, and that is something that TS want to gobble up after the ban phase.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that Aurora in the top end of LPL has been such a highly priced pick as well. It's just really one of the best picks for trying to lock down and help follow up on that lockdown that the Vi provides you. AL now got to try and choose. I mean, I wouldn't mind the Jace here, to be honest, to pair up with that poke, with the Varus, and then the consistent DPS coming through from your Azir. They are missing a little bit of a front line, and they instead elect that They'll be able to handle the Rumble with this on, and then have a little bit of teamfight agency themselves as well. Massive burden then on Shanks, on Tarzan to be that consistent DPS threat, burden of hope to be that consistent poking threat as well. And for Kael plus Flandre, it seems like the job is simple. Stand in front, start for fights, and Top Esports going to have to try and absorb that as best as possible.
Crisp's going to try and get this counter pick down onto Kael on the Leona. Alistair is such a pivotal support champion pick. I think one of the most important ones in the LPL. And it is going to be interesting to watch as we continue to talk about all these matchups across the board. It's hard not to hype up every single lane, like every single assignment, because of how well these teams are both playing. But I do still feel like Kael is the premier support right now in the league. The one lane where I think you could definitely say it is very AL favored across this board. So I'm interested to see how Chris navigates a Rel into Leona matchup, knowing he could have kind of not sold out, but taken the easier route by picking Alistair into another engaged support. This is definitely a big R5.
Yeah, this. I mean, and it could have also just quite easily been Braum as well. But I think that Braum versus Braum versus this AL team is so disgusting already. When you see it versus Leona, you see it versus the Ornn as well. You can stop that Call the Forge God in its tracks. Like, I think this is probably a bit of a missed opportunity, to be honest, to take away. But then you are really pigeonholing yourself in terms of how much engage you've got. You're sending, what effectively is Tarzan in on his own. If you, or rather, sending Kanavi in on his own, if you don't go for a engaged support on 5. So it's a little tricky for them. I think the Braum would have been really good, but I think that they've opted into having some dive buddies, which, we'll see if it pays out or not.
I do want to, I went and pulled this statistic really quickly, Roodood, because I thought it was very intriguing seeing the lock-in. And this is the first Ornn game for Flandre since, most poetically, Game 4 up against Top Esports in what series, you may ask?
Was it the LPL Split 1 Finals?
Split 1 Finals. So this is the first Ornn for Flandre since then. How poetic is it that it's back up against Top Esports, but also knowing how open Flandre's pool is, still an intriguing pick in this first game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little bit of a concession as well. Taking Ornn here, you are sacrificing any form of resources that you might have wanted, and that, those resources are going to go elsewhere. So you now need to keep your eyes on and think about where are we going to start placing those resources. It's definitely going to be down on that bot side.
I feel for the Nirvana teams, Roodood, because
yeah,
they don't get the fan support that these matchups give. I understand it, as you can tell the difference of the stakes of this matchup alone by how many Jaios ring in, and look how packed the fans are to watch what could be another preview for a Split 2 title in the LPL.
I mean, regardless, it's going to be a preview of a very highly weighted playoff series. Assuming that these two teams do end up meeting in the playoffs, obviously there's a world where they don't, and we see some lower bracket shenanigans. They get knocked out early, but expectation is that these are two of our teams that we're expecting to go quite a distance.
Two of our teams expect to go quite a distance. Two of our teams with aspirations to get to the international stage, especially since we level up the international event, going to MSI, and knowing how poor Top Esports performed the first time round. It's got to really reinvigorate a team like AL, knowing that they can compete against TES. They can nearly go the distance. And what do they look like when they get to the international stage, especially knowing that they do have veterans on their team that also know how to play at that level?
Yeah, and I mean, for a player like Tarzan as well, who's really suffered from previous instances of success. Hold on, yeah.
Holy moly.
I think they're just kicking it off.
Champion level 1. Who says that?
People that don't take E level 1, that too.
Yep.
But no, to quickly touch on it again, right? Tarzan had been frequently struggling, and the Deadly Flourish goes wide. Hope with some good fancy feet. Hadn't made it back to that international success since LNG a few years ago, and would like to see him get back there, and like to see that high stakes level gameplay from Tarzan that we've come to appreciate on this AL roster, and how well that can do in the international setting.
Oh, but here we go. The Brainiac Kanavi gets that ward down onto the rafters and now sneaks in Tarzan on his red buff. Kanavi immediately going to force a 1v1 between our marquee matchup. Two of the best in the jungle right now in the LPL, and Kanavi is just giving Tarzan the business. Forces him off his red buff. The bottom lanes fly over, and Kael sees a window onto JackeyLove. Flashes back over the pit to get back to safety. Kanavi is here, forces Kael to flash back. Just the push and pull between these two teams. The fireworks already starting to sizzle 3 minutes into our opening bout.
Yeah, man. You can sense the hesitancy there, right? Hope thinks about flashing over that wall to try and take down JackeyLove, but just doesn't quite have the damage. I think that he knows that if he goes in there, Crisp is going to follow him over. Creates a 2 versus 1, which is then all of a sudden not very advantageous for the Varus. But very, very close. No first blood just yet, but already teams scrapping, teams going for a good little fight. And look at the swap already on that minimap. Flandre looking to try and catch this wave, but Kael's here, Hope's here. Maybe 369 gets a little bit caught out.
Here we go. Flandre flashes forward. He picked this horn against TS months ago, and he's looking to fight with it into the Rumble. 369 flashes and dies for the first kill of this series.
Goes down and doesn't get anything there. Hope on this top side now gets a free wave to try to cash in. Flandre can TP down to that bot side, catch the wave that will be pushed in by Jackie and Crisp, and it looks like he's even going to try to walk it out as well. Gets about halfway out the base and decides, no, I've got a TP for this. Means that he doesn't miss out on anything. And JackeyLove and Crisp, we'll see what they do. 369 walks out to that top side, so I imagine we're going to see Crisp and JackeyLove walk out to the top lane as well. 369 will use the TP to get back down to that bot lane for when that's crashed in. And then we'll see a bit of a flip around. Who fights for that dragon? Who fights for those grubs?
Roodood, we're starting to see that theme on our new season really start to show. We got it from a couple of our few teams. We heard Ben in the interview talk about how he thinks this is just going to make it so easy to constantly lane swap bot lanes topside with 8 minutes on the grubs. And, well, TS and AL definitely stamp a seal of approval on that thinking. So welcome into the new first rotation for the LPL going forward here in the Rumble stage and maybe further.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then so be it. I think that the issue with lane swaps that people had previously was that it was decentralizing the 2v2s and the 1 versus 1s, and the way that this is at least playing out, I should say, is that we still get those matchups. I say that as I'm looking at AL on the minimap, constantly trying to avoid it. But we still get those, and they'll at least get to see the expression of a laning phase.
And how it plays into the new grub timer and such as well. Right now, Kanavi trying to solo sneak his way through that dragon, but I'm actually surprised that Pink Ward didn't pick up the ward by AL. Is Creme forcing Shanks to flash away with just one use of the Between Worlds. Kanavi comes off the dragon, immediate snap engage from Chris, goes down, but Kael holds Kanavi in place, so Tarzan gets some safety. Creme is out of mana, but Kael is out of dashes to get back to safety. He falls, but in comes Flandre with the Ord Horde, hits onto 2, Tarzan goes into the untargetable, but the shield bails out Kanavi, sneaks away with a sliver of help, but no! Tarzan gets the kill through the pack?
He still bleeds out, still goes down, and that's a massive commitment from Top Esports to put so many people into this mid lane. The entire time we get to see that there's a lot of free farming going on, and Hope able to catch out on a few minions down on that bot side. I think overall, 1 for 1, they can probably both be quite happy about that. Again, lots of commitment, lots of ultis used on either side, but another one of these two teams particularly getting that advantage is what we've come to expect from when these two teams go head-to-head with one another. It's not really that one-sided affair. It's always close. It's always nail-biting stuff. As it's JackeyLove, the Deadly Flourish blocked by Kael. And yeah, the Leona with no flash, theoretically a sitting target. But this Call the Forge God, the initial proc hits onto 4. Double knockup comes through. Now he turns around to get the shield from his passive, and then just bleeds out.
Wow. Okay.
So it's the way Neferi Q works, that eventually it will do the damage over time.
Yep.
And if you hit 2 Qs, then it procs it instantly, but that duration, almost Death Dance-like.
So what I'm hearing is the meat sweats kicked in from the Glizzy Neferi.
That's exactly what happened.
All right, you can't define it any other way. Right there, it's canon now. But hey, if we ever wanted a literal personification of how close this matchup was, we got it 5 minutes into the first game.
Yeah.
But now attention turns back towards the spot side. Remember, Kanavi came off this first Drake take to try and help with that mid lane play. AL trying to set up shop, but once again it's Chris looking to press the issue. No Deadly Flourish is going to land for the time being. Everyone's going to settle back in, trying to wrestle control of those wave states, but Dragon will be attended to soon once these junglers feel more comfortable playing for it.
Okay, Slayer, I'm going to take a little bit of time to look at some of our scaling aspects of both of these two teams. It's I would like to say leaning a little bit more towards AL. It leans in heavily into Shanks, who one of these players that has had a meteoric rise really in 2025, coming into this as a not necessarily unknown quantity by any means, but somebody who wasn't expected to be on a top 2 team, let's say. Right. And I think that his performance so far in 2025 has been very, very impressive. He's now got the burden of being the late game hypercarry for his team on this Azir. And if they can get to that late game, if they can get to those 5-6 items and reach it at parity, Shanks is the one who's going to do the most damage. He's the one who's got that playmaking capability with the Azir as well. So plenty here of chances for him to have a bit of a standout performance, and would like to see it happen. For top esports, their scaling lies in JackeyLove reaching the hyper late game, but then trying to cut through an Ornn, not necessarily going to be incredibly easy. To round that out, Kanavi did just take all 3 grubs relatively uncontested, so that's a big boon for top esports nice and easily. But this top squad, very 3-item focused, as Shanks trying to now use some fancy feet.
I think JackeyLove really expected that Deadly Flourish to land. It looked like it hit with the animation, but yeah, so curtain call down. 3 grubs for a Drake is a trade that is not very grub-sided. I know that was always a debate, like, first 2 Drakes for 6 grubs, like, which side do you really like? No, first 3 grubs are so much more impactful than a first Drake by this point. And to point out, talking more about your scaling factor, Flandre just getting time to kind of farm levels solo and not having to be 2v1 or die too often does also help accelerate that timer on this Azir, knowing that level 14 forward, you get those 1,000 gold upgrades to your teammates' items.
Yeah, that's very true, right? So the ornaments as we move later into this game as well, adding to the relatively AL flavored scaling that we've already talked about. So we'll keep our eyes on that and keep our eyes by extension on top esports. Can they push the envelope that little bit faster? Can they find a way to make this game a bit more about them in the early stages of this game, or are they going to struggle and get to that late game point where actually they're not really favored in a fight? But for the time being, at the very least, both of these teams just sort of sat back, chilling out, farming, and we're sort of getting shades of Game 3 from the previous series here, Slayer, as we're 10 minutes in, 2 kills for one team, 1 kill for the other, and, considering whether we turn around, took ourselves in for a little bit.
But at least in this scenario, it's not just because both teams are skittish. It is, we're seeing natural trades from top squads that you get, right? The Dragon for grubs. We're seeing teleports traded for wave states to make sure plates aren't dropped off the board. So it's that push and pull. It is really fun to really analyze and break down as the game goes on. And just knowing the stakes, as fun as the OMG series win was in that Game 3, this is what everybody came to see. And you saw that from the get-go once we got onto the rift from the Jayos. And it's going to impact every single movement these both teams make going forward, knowing that, hey, both have been pretty prone to big mistakes in later stages of the game.
They truly have, and that's a very valid point to be bringing up, as we know that top esports Game 1s have been typically their weaker area of a series, let's say, as they typically find their way back into the fourfold in Games 2, and if they need in Games 3, Flandre.
Oh, okay. Wow, the predict on the Ornhorn. I know he's not ever going to get this kill, but I don't give him credit. He actually got Creme hit with the pull in and the push back out on that Ornn ultimate.
So there's nobody up on this top side, so Creme probably fine to just sit here still and find his minions, just keep wave clearing. Flandre tries to catch in on a little bit more gold. It buys him priority, buys him that slightly faster recall that he can get in ahead of his counterpart, but by and large, just a used ultimate, 1 minute 20 on the next dragon, and that Call the Forge God will be back up, so it's just a little bit of a trade, and amping up those damage dealt to champions numbers for Flandre, never a bad thing as the Ornn. But we'll get to see whether or not we can get that first item picked up. I think for Shanks, if he can go back and finish off that Nash's Tooth, we're really waiting on that. With 1 minute left on that Ocean Dragon, that's going to be the big ticket. If first items get hit across the board for AL, they'll probably be in a good position to look for that skirmish.
They should have first item spike advantage for now. The Shanks likely gets the Nash's Tooth completed, has teleport, he will TP back safely. This should be the real first defining fight of this heavyweight bout over this dragon. And AL are going to try and press their advantage, a small one, but an important one nonetheless. You got to drift your eyes towards both these junglers.
Yeah, TP's available for both 369. I was going to say and Flandre, but not for Flandre actually. As he started to pivot his way down to that bot side, but we've still not got ulti yet, so not going to be the biggest use in the world if he gets there. And 15 seconds on that dragon, Call the Forge God probably still 20, 30 seconds away from being up, so it's going to be on AL to try to stall if they want to use the Ornn at that fight. Of course, if they don't want to use the Ornn at that fight, then they may have to concede it. 369 with the ulti will do a very good job at taking down somebody, and we've yet to really see this Rumble Vi combo come to the forefold, and the Rel Rumble as well, are really powerful to 5 versus 5. Looking at the team fights, it's top esports that have got all of those big circles that can come down on one another and make a team fight look scary, but it's AL that have got just that slight little bit of scaling on their side, and for the time being, I'm very much favouring top esports if we see a fight break out.
Both AD carries done with Youmu's. The spike as hard as they can at this first item. The top lane may be where the real first fight comes across here is Flandre having some trouble into that Liandry's, and the push and pull showing itself on the Rift here as topside and reset timers open up TES to take that dragon for free. So we split both of the opening dragons, and that's got to feel good for top esports knowing that they have control of the grubs from a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, I think this is what top esports would be looking for, right? Like their composition is just slightly better at this stage in the game, so expecting them to be able to play the game a little bit slower and maybe start amping up with those grubs in their back pocket. And this is where they've been really, really good. Is just finding small advantages on the map where there's nothing else for the enemy team to try to do. But they aren't able to take down this tier 1 turret in its entirety. They're able to find a little bit of gold for it, don't get me wrong, but or a little bit of damage on it rather, don't get me wrong, but not really anything lost on the flip side of the map either, right? There's no topside invade coming through from Tarzan just yet as Flandre looks to clear this wave out from Creme.
Does have level 11 now, so that Ornn ultimate won't be down for as long as it usually feels like, and AL are once again using their side lane, the opposite side of the play there for TES on that tier 1 turret to find their own advantages. So they use Shanks' prio in top lane to try and get this Rift Herald for free here. I think with that Blast Cone going down, it will be secured.
And there we go then. Like, this is such a back and forth game, such a trade of minuscule proportions, I think. Rift Herald going down. This is on a ward.
Yep, Chains of Corruption comes across. Kael trying to chain the CC together. Does it perfectly. There was nothing Chris could do. That guy didn't move the entire time. He just blinked back to a gray screen. And now the gates start to open up a bit more.
Exactly, now
Herald
the floodgates start to open. That Herald gets placed. The mid-tier 1 is going to be the focus. It's going to get taken down, and with no support, it's a very real world that they look for something on the bot side here as top esports are looking.
Yep, Flandre completely surrounded, has his flash. If he wants to buy space, gets away from the first low, but 369 follows him. Up further, up creek here, TS are trying to force their fight with the flank manifesting. 369 finds that pick, and now Tarzan, Hope, and Kael have a lot less angles to get out, and Kanavi is sniffing for a kill. Kael gets found out. Hope has to flash away from Chris, but here comes the curtain call. You don't need the damage, you just need the slows. Double stun from Chris. 4 shots sinks through, but Kanavi is completely burned through. Tarzan finds the first kill. He's got all the pack with him, but he can't get onto Chris until he jumps back forward, finds himself another reset. Tarzan is certainly going to make it costly for him to drop, but TES play the map well enough and open up the map in their favor.
Yeah, Shanks is alone on this top side the whole time. He takes down top tier 2 in response, and he actually teleports into this mid lane to keep that alive as well. So the Azir, this scaling factor that we talked about for AL, got a lot of gold off the back of that, but it came at the cost of a lot of his team there. Many members end up falling. That's the 3-4 kills that top esports managed to find themselves, which were largely traded back. And we're looking at the gold. It's pretty favoured for anyone's legend at this stage. This is the top side of the fight. Remember, bot side is where we saw Flandre go down. and a little bit of a split focus on who they're actually going to try to get for. Kanavi knows that he can only really reach the Leona, so accepts his fate there. Hope with a very quick flash out does a great job. And Christmas is walking forward here, and Kanavi as well. They just tank so much damage. It's good from Hope and Tarzan that they're not just running away. They're pumping out DPS on their way out. And if that Q would have landed, maybe it would have been fine. But Shanks finding a kill, it seems, on live.
That scaling threat. Flandre delivers on the dive. That's another turret down. And like you talked about, as much of a win that was for Top Esports in the kills, the question that now remains on the minds of many is, all right, what do AL look like in those fights with Shanks alongside them?
He's almost finished that Liandry's as well, so he's so close to being strong, and you can see denying these creeps, denying this experience as well. He's doing everything he can to choke out the side lanes for the Forge God.
Flandre trying to team up with Tarzan. They won't jump in up against Kanavi. Don't know where JackeyLove or Crisp are on the map. Definitely advising caution.
Just a bit of banter, innit?
I can't really describe it that way as the American. Dude.
Okay.
That's not my place.
I didn't know. I'm glad. Honestly, I'm glad that it was understood as what I said instead of it just being a gobbledygook of English words that didn't quite get recognised or translated appropriately. Either way, though, firing off the ulti again just to say hello. I think more so than anything else. But Top Esports need to try and find a way back into this. Reminder that they don't really have the best scaling in this game. Right? They've got good scaling. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think they ever outscale an Azir. And Flandre now has been targeted by 4 people at Top Esports, but there are reinforcements on their way.
No flash, nor Ornhorn. Flandre, how much time can you buy becomes the question. He's surviving a pretty long time. Nobody wanted to commit to find the kill, and they left Kanavi. They hung him out to dry under the turret. First kill found. Tarzan gets a reset, but doesn't want to push his advantage too far here. Here comes the equalizer down. 369 on the flank. Curtain call. So much damage getting compacted as they try to find Tarzan. Kael takes the last 4 shot, and boy, was that a great sacrifice because 369's the trade. Now Hope steps up, but Creme's already half HP. These arrows are about to start hurting if they land. But Tarzan's trying to slip out. Look who's on the hunt. It's JackeyLove flashing after him. Smells blood in the water, and he sinks it home with a crit shot. That's the difference you get from JackeyLove.
He just flashes over the wall, headshots Tarzan, sends him back to the grey screen. The whole time, though, once again, look at who's in the side lane. It's Shanks, farming up, making sure that he will be strong. And that question you ask, Slayer, we still don't have an answer, but what do AL look like when Shanks turns up to these fights? If this is a mammoth farming effort from Shanks for him to do nothing in these team fights, then trust me, anyone's legend, they're going to be fuming about it. But if he can turn up to these team fights and start manifesting great successes, absolutely, this is their time to shine. With the dragon spawned as well, AL, this is their window. Use Shanks to try and make his way into that dragon fight. He's got teleports, so we can stay on this top wave for the time being. We'd like to see him down there, like to see him contributing. 2 items plus that stasis available. A very strong Azir.
It's such a big spot for a guy that we came into this matchup not really wanting to focus the spotlight on, right? It's the names like Tarzan and Kanavi. It's the series scores so far in 2025. But bottom line now, Shanks' mainstay champion as a player on this Azir, and now put in a position to carry. You put it so well, Roodood. If this is an AL loss, a lot of the questions are going to come Shanks' way about how he played these fights out. And if it's a win, boy, are we singing the praises of a guy who we're also looking for him to find some consistency, kind of like Creme has in these recent games for TES.
The Atacon immediately started. Tarzan and Hope, the 2 doing this. Shanks, you can see just off on his top side. Here comes the ulti.
Yep, first fight with Shanks. How does this look? He tries to fly in with the Emperor's Divide, but immediately just pops Kanavi. There's the Shanks difference. There's the 2-item Azir difference. And now TS are scrambling to find some way back in towards this Atacon, who, by the way, is doing a fair share of damage on the back end, just churning through AL's health bars, and now they're completely scattered. There's JackeyLove fighting the big shot onto Kael. Atacon resets. AL are way too hurt to try and continue to push this fight, as juggling Atacon aggro might have burned them.
Very split fight on both sides. Flandre and Kael pay for the sins of their 3-man core, looking to take down Kanavi there. Kael ends up going down, and it's Flandre who has to flash out to safety as well. Flandre does a very good job at sitting, absorbing damage in that front line, and getting out to safety. Actually, not the same to be said for Kael, who once again, you can see him here charging in aggressively. looking for Kanavi. He's pretty isolated at this point, but the rest of Enforcements do come on through. Hope able to get off of that equalizer, which doesn't really hit as hard as you might have liked it to. Maybe that's the separation that costs AL in the end here.
Look at this Otacon. It's just, it chunks.
It does chase you very far.
Yeah, and that spinning blades, who knows what these shots from JackeyLove look like if all those don't land and churn through the health bar. So small things, right? We're going to keep talking about it. The small things that are going to separate the difference between these teams and separate the teams from the wins that they try to find in this series.
9-9 is your kill score. Our neutral objectives, again, relatively evenly distributed. 2 Drakes to 1. Still waiting to decide who it is that is able to end up taking that feats of... Oh, the feats of strength went to AL, I do apologise. But yeah, even still, though, with Shanks being now with those upgraded Merc Treads, he's so a little bit more MR, but could have probably been looking to spend that on something a bit more cost-effective. I don't know.
What is coming online for them, though, is Flandre's level 14, gets his first Ornn augmentation. I was curious if it's going to go towards Shanks, but instead he gives it to Hope, so that Youmuu's gets that huge 1,000 gold worth stat buff, and that's going to really start to skew the gold lead that is still pretty close. It's a little bit deceptive now as this Ornn levels up more and more. Yeah,
and he gets to go back to base, finish off what I assume is going to be more mana in just 3 autos time. And now for Hope, he's now a threat in these neutral objective exchanges, right? Maybe not so much a all-out 5 versus 5 with a fight that ends in a second, but when you're looking at the precursor to it, the start of the fight, what that looks like, I hope, he's going to have to try and shine. That's that mirror mana finished off for him. 3 items on the Varus. Atakan still live down on that bot side. 20 in 90 seconds. Anyone's legend with a firm grasp on this game.
Yep, and you can see in the side lanes too, Shanks' value hasn't fully shown up in fights yet, but these side waves are such an annoying task for 369 to answer. We've barely seen any screen time of him because he's constantly had to play for these long and top and bottom waves. And AL are converting that into space around these big neutral objectives. It nearly burned them last time with the Otacon priority. They won't start up Otacon this time, but they are waiting for TES to try and overstep to stop them, and that Drake coming up soon, definitely going to be a priority as well, as everyone's just down here towards this bot side, waiting for these side waves to swing back in their favor.
Kanavi on a little bit of a flank here. I mean, Junhao was trying to replicate this for Ultra Power on his Vi game last series, but trying to play hidden, trying to play in fog, and acts like the enemy team doesn't really know where you are. It's possible that he gets a little clip onto Shanks here.
Oh, the big bounty's the one right in front of him. Gotta think the Kanavi is foaming at the mouth to throw himself towards Shanks, who does have both summoners and a stasis, so Kanavi doesn't bite just yet. Flandre, by the way, gets level 15, so that Leandres gets a big upgrade. Shanks gets even more Exodia-esque with this Azir as we start to set up for a huge fight somehow in the bottom river. I don't care what neutral it is. It's going to be a Cloud Drake or an Otacon. There's got to be a fight brewing down here soon.
One of the two, for sure. I mean, we came into this series, Slayer, as well, highlighting the junglers and really what it is that those two players bring to their teams, but it doesn't feel like that's been the linchpin for this series, or for this game so far. I mean, I'd argue more so that our story of what Shanks can do has been really prevalent, and Kanavi been kind of caught out, but more so that it's Crisp and Kael who are starting these fights and dictating what happens and when.
You just spotted that. Shanks gets a decent chunk onto Kanavi with one Sand Soldier. Kanavi's down to half HP. That's enough. TES call off the Dragon Stop. And AL, while it is a Cloud Soul, it's not everybody's fan favorite. They are on Soul Point in 5 minutes if they can find it.
Yeah, and then importantly, right, if they get the Soul, it's then Elder that spawns. And, you know, we can talk about the
-1
game-ending power of a Cloud Soul all we like, but the game-ending power of an Elder Dragon is much, much higher. Now 3 items on the Azir, 3 items on the Varus. AL happy to start putting a little bit more emphasis on this game. Start up that Atakan, force Top Esports to walk in, trying to find that fight.
Trying to get flank angles by funneling TS further in towards Octagon. They're trying to flank over top. Kael is sniffing for it, but it hasn't manifested just yet as Chris tries to set up his own flank. Right now, Flandre's the only one to bite. Otacon, about low 10k HP, but by focusing this, TS have allowed AL to try and entrap them, try to circle them out. It's Kael that you have to watch on to try and start this fight. Solar Flare Zenith Blade forward, or is it the Oran Horn from Flandre? Finally, the floodgates may open as TS are backed off the Otacon. A 50-50 may be coming in, but there goes Kael, secured by Tarzan. They get the Otacon. Shanks stasis the crash down from Chris. Can Shanks get back out to safety? No, Kanavi's following after him. How much value does Shanks get? Absolutely nothing. 369 though, does not survive Tarzan's rampage, but anyone's legend just cannot fight without Shanks. TES's target selection reigns supreme.
And Shanks has farmed for 28 minutes to go golden and die in the pivotal team fight. Yes, Tarzan steals away the Otacon, but Top Esports get to take the fight itself. Jackie and Kanavi are going to walk towards the Baron. Creme will take a pit stop at the tier 1 turret, and all of that hard work, all of the gold that Shanks had funneled into him, comes home for nothing.
While a Jhin Baron take is slow, there's no one to stop him. As we go back through this replay, and you got to watch all the little intricacies that happen in this one.
Yeah, so to start off with, it's good for AL because Flandre's holding Creme and Crisp at bay. It's a 4 versus 3 inside the pit, but then Crisp just decides, hold on, why am I hitting the Orn? Starts to come alive, goes for the backline, and
the flash.
It's 3,500 damage in this team fight. Went absolutely nuclear on a poke Varus, which is pretty wild to be able to do, but there's no threat onto JackeyLove. There was no threat onto Creme, and now with Top Esports setting their sights on an 11-1 opening to this split, it looks a lot more likely that they take this game number 1.
And you highlighted it. I'm glad you called it out as super late scaling. But at this point, JackeyLove, he's got the components for the LDR to come through. 4-item Jhin with an IE. That, we start encroaching on the game warping territory of this Jhin. And it just really stings knowing AL, while they still have this Shanks Azir, the window is starting to really close on him being the most powerful member in a late game scenario.
Yeah, I think that the blighting duel coming through gives him a little bit more of a window, I suppose, for him to be powerful, and hopefully he'll reach level 18.
Oh no,
as
Kanavi.
Tarzan.
I was going to say, one of the hardest people to pick off and find making a mistake on TES is Kanavi. He'll survive that pick play, though. He has the rest of his team pretty far up, so no scare there, just a little bit of a fright. TES going to set their sights back on a tier 2 turn and just continue farming gold off this Baron.
And now we look at those gold leads, which had so previously been in AL's favor, I suppose. It's slowly whittled away, and now 369 so much further ahead of Flandre. You talked about him having to catch sideways constantly. That's now to his credit. He's 2,000 gold up over his counterpart. Same to be said down on that bot side as well. JackeyLove hasn't died yet this game. Is up 1k. Has that finished LDR? 75% crit chance on the Jhin. With every 4th shot definitely critting as well. That execute factor as well. And the JackeyLove in a very, very commanding position. And again, with that Youmuu's he's up against, again, looking at the amount of people that have built armor in this game, 3 very squishy champions in the Neferi, the Azir, and the Varus. So if JackeyLove gets free time to hit them, it's dangerous.
That's the real differentiating factor. While we keep talking about JackeyLove versus Shanks, and that's a important argument to have, the problem that always comes with this type of Varus is reliable damage this late into a game. So we'll see if Hope can try and at least use his utility to make a difference, but so much of the damage brunt is being put on Tarzan, being put on Shanks to try and rescue AL from what seems like an almost decided Game 1 defeat.
TP in from Flandre, Soul spawned now as AL look to swing that metronome back in their favor. The momentum in favor of Top Esports as they've just taken a ring of turrets away from them, and now Top Esports closing in.
They're walking into 369's trap, throws down the equalizer, but he's a little too far forward on his own, but they find the kill onto Hope. They commit a ton of ultimates, not towards Shanks this time, but towards the AD carry. Can Shanks step up and push the damage to the Sam soldiers? Look at the Emperor's Divide, throws on to Kanavi. He gets out, and Tarzan is sold out by JackeyLove, barely able to survive. Kanavi uses the GA to buy more time for Creme, who nearly eviscerates Kael, but Shanks flies in with the army behind him. JackeyLove can't step up to try and decide this fight. AL bide their time and grit out a gnarly fight win.
So they can all now go back to base, teleport back out onto the map. Jackie and Crisp cannot take this objective in time. And the teleport comes through. Shanks leading the charge for AL. It was Crisp with a rare whiff there on the rel engage, and they might look for now.
Shanks! No! He goes into stasis, gets away from the deadly flourish. JackeyLove about half HP, but Shanks flies in. Can the crit shot come? No! The bell has not been rung, and Shanks is going to cash in a double that sets up Cloud Soul for anyone's Legends.
AL reap what they sow. They gave the gold to Shanks, and finally he comes home to harvest. The bot lane of Top Esports have no chance of fighting him, and they just barely can't make it work. Anyone's Legend. They find the soul now, and they can move into the rest of this game, knowing that all that time, all that effort that they put into Shanks will pay off.
Let's go back through this fight, because I know your eyes really capturing Tarzan on the bot side of this thing, but there was so much going on once more.
Yeah, Hope gets focused out here, and I think that Anyone's Legend were looking at that previous team fight and thinking, oh no, it was Hope having such a good time and things for the most part, but Top Esports can't quite get enough damage down. Look at Crisp here. He gets just too overzealous, flashes over Shanks, who just steps underneath it, and Crisp just with that complete whiff changes how this fight might have looked to play out. Finally here. Small thing from JackeyLove as he walks, tries to get back in. He walks away from the soldier and then walks back into its range, gives the stab to Shanks. If he walks around it, kites it out, might have been able to find the way in, but he gives Shanks that angle, gives him the auto. Gives AL the soul.
Those small moments, those single freeze frames, autos, you know, Q pullovers from the Fury. It's just all these small things are pulling these two teams each which way, and how poetic knowing these are the top two teams of the LPL right now in Group Ascend, and we have even kills, marginal gold difference. It's really the Cloud Soul and some of these ornament items that give AL that slight edge, as the gold graph really signifies how even of a matchup this is right now.
Yeah, and how topsy-turvy of a matchup this has been as well. AL were ahead for, you know, those first 25 minutes or so, but Top Esports found a crucial fight, a clutch fight, that they now are losing out on. It's very minimal, it's very small amounts of gold that they're behind in, or that they're up in even. But it's not really about that gold anymore. We're at the stage in the game where it's about momentum, it's about who feels confident to step forward and take these fights, as Tarzan hops straight onto Creme.
Oh, they're going all out. Look at him. Shanks fly in. Creme is completely cooked. Shanks' Azir does not disappoint and blows TES out of the water. What a pick to find. Guaranteeing Baron now swings back into the hands of AL.
Forget the Baron Slayer. They've got 3 members dead for 35 seconds. There's no wave clear on Top Esports here. The equalizer would have to be used. I think that Shanks may have just secured them. Maybe not the game in this instance. Maybe it is just the Baron, and I'm getting too far ahead of myself. But the 5v2 on the map. AL get the Baron. Tarzan finding one half. Shanks finds the other. This game number 1, once again, this heavyweight matchup of 2025. The best 2 teams of the LPL period for this year continue to deliver.
And some of the plagues, the shortcomings of TS in these single games really starting to hurt them again. They've been known to throw gold leads, and Kanavi's been able to bail them out of some of the bigger games, but this is Anyone's Legends we're talking about. They're just a different level, potentially one that could contend with TS as we continue to talk about the future of this LPL split. For now, though, they knock down middle inhibitor. They get a top inhib turret down as well. They're going to recall and try and spend more of their gold and set up for what could be a game-winning fight coming soon.
And let that sink in, everybody. 36 minutes into game number 1. We're not really any closer to knowing. It feels like Anyone's Legend are in the best position. A close-up on Tarzan and then a close-up on Shanks here, just
with the orange
destroying them.
It's just so awesome to watch for a player that had a ton of pressure coming into this year, playing alongside Tarzan, playing alongside Flandre. Even, you know, such a touted support prospect in Kael, who's done such wondrous things. But as a mid laner on a team like this with aspirations so much higher than Shanks could have ever dreamed of, not too long ago. And now, in one of their biggest series of the Rumble stage, he's had his lows, but the highs in these last couple of fights have been game-defining, and he just needs one more to push this thing over the brink.
And with the Rabadon's death cap in his back pocket as well, he is as best poised as an Azir could be. Call the Forge God now.
Go after JackeyLove, just push him off of the turret. They're trying to burn through it. Flash does have to be used there from Kanavi, trying to respect the damage of Shanks, who is off to the side. But TES won't budge just yet. They're not going to give up their last inhibitor turret, but they've got other waves to worry about. And that cannon minion, Baroned up, is trying to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, Crisp is down 5 levels on Hope. He takes 1 piercing arrow and loses a third of his HP. Has to go back to base. With the wave finally coming in.
Oh, JackeyLove gets hit with the solar flare. That's cleanse out of JackeyLove, so a little less space for this Jhin.
That's 2 ultis down.
They'll have to be careful. They've lost some of their key engage ultimates. Maybe don't want to overpush. This is exactly what TS want to do in the wheelhouse, but again, Hope hits another huge arrow. JackeyLove is down to about half HP. Now triple inhibitors down. TS know this might be their last stand. They're on their last legs. Curtain call, though, not getting enough slows to open up an angle for Chris, so AL are able to creep back out, and they don't have to overpush. They're going to have double supers coming through. Or no, excuse me, top inhibitor
still haven't taken top inhibitor yet. We're waiting for that Drake, the Elder Dragon, in 15 seconds. Those crucial ultimates that we talked about for Flandre, for Kael, they're back up and ready. And now 369, what are you doing?
You're completely out of your element. You're way too far up. That is free pickings for AL.
I mean, that's the free Elder. And likely just the game that comes off of that. It would have been really tricky for top esports to find a fight anyway, without the equalizer, without the curtain call. But now without a member, it gets even harder.
And they're going after Kanavi. He gets knocked up. Kael finds that pick. The GA is only going to bide him some mere seconds as he watches his fate be sealed. The cease and desist is a marginal play. Kanavi falls. AL will turn back towards the Elder. But they might be able to just take this thing mid lane and win the whole game.
With 45 seconds on Kanavi, what is the choice? What do AL opt into? Nobody's recalling.
We're
walking down mid lane. It's the final charge.
They got the Cloud Soul. They got Kael coming back up. And right now they have a 3v5. 369 is going to be back and available. You've got the ults for both Hope and Kael up in mere seconds. This is where you have to go for the throat against the defending champs, against the team that ruined your amazing split to try and become champions. The team that knocked you down in Group Ascend. AL are playing with a vengeance, and they want to finish this thing now. But TS have bought enough time for Kanavi to return.
Yeah, they have no Baron, though. They have no waves that they can't easily be cleared out. Piercing arrows from Hope, buying so much space. Creme and JackeyLove doing what they can to wave clear. Equalizer ready and available as well.
The big beast TS are backed into a corner. There's only one way through to try and fight, but Creme's already at about half HP. Shanks is getting a ton of damage through. Kael goes in, and Equalizer does nothing. Shanks' damage is just ludicrous, and AL bring the boom and knock TS down in this series with Elder to sing it home. It was topsy-turvy, but anyone's legends were up for the task, and they are going to repeat the last series, go up 1-0 over Top Esports.
And there's a reason that these two are the top 2 in the LPL. AL go blow for blow. They go pound for pound with Top Esports and then go one step further. For the entire first 25-30 minutes, this game could not be separated. Both of these two teams giving us everything that they had. And finally, anyone's legend, they find a fight, they find a soul, and then they go one step further. They find 369, who is pushed far too far forward. Give themselves the Elder, give themselves the game off the back of that.
It was a game of heroics, but also, Roodood, we really saw what the worrying signs are for both teams at different points in this game. You pointed out the 369 getting picked off. That's been a big problem for him in later games, but also this game really could have gone completely in TS's favor. They had a Baron because Shanks mispositioned in one critical fight. Against TS, that usually feels like a death sentence in a game state, but the redemption story for this guy, I mean, player of the game. I'll start the discussion now. Player of the game. I think it's done and dusted.
I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into it for me, and Shanks did farm himself up quite a lot to be that threat in the team fights. I mean, this is Tarzan once again having a great game. Like the fight that they found around the top side was in the later stage was Tarzan hopping in first and starting that initiation. It's hard for me not to say that whenever these two junglers go head to head, that they're the linchpins for this. And I think that this game it wasn't. Maybe Tarzan wasn't the crucial part of this game that maybe he has been in other instances, and that Kanavi as well wasn't the linchpin for top esports that we're so used to him being. Felt more like we were looking at JackeyLove and thinking, can he carry his team over the line with this? Creme never really felt like a factor in this game on the Aurora. Nope. And 369 is ultimately the reason they lost. So there's a lot of really worrying parts for top esports. And I mean, if you're looking at, like you say, trying to find us an MVP for AL, there's arguments definitely to go across the board, but Shanks probably is going to be your standout.
Well, I mean, hey, Hope. Look at that damage on the VODS that we were afraid it was going to get outscaled. JackeyLove has 2 deaths at the end of this game. He was like 7-0-4 at one point, but look at the gold graph, guys. That is the mark of a heavyweight battle, but also the mark of so many top esports games this split.
Yeah, I mean their ability to A, lose game ones and B, throw game ones have proven to be quite high. As we run through some of the highlights of this game. I mean, there were so many fights that we could have seen. I didn't realize that that had happened. So JackeyLove fourth shotting a cannon creep was, let's say, suboptimal, for lack of a better word. And we love the LPL observers for highlighting it.
And as we go through these replays, I do want to make sure, I know when we talk about, scrutinizing top esports, I understand that they're 10-1, they're defending champions, but the reason I feel like we're so critical of top esports, and to some extent anyone's legends, right, is because we understand that these two teams, their ceilings, their aspirations are so high that it demands near perfection or showing perfection in these series. Because if you think, if they're able to lose games in the LPL and make series closer than they need to be, what happens at the international that top esports are so desperately hoping to be competitive at?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that what happens at the international is what we saw happen at first stand. So we don't end up with those good takeaways. As this is a great example, really, of why we were talking about it being JackeyLove looking as though he could be the one that carries his team through this. It's him setting up the fourth shot for taking down Atacon. It's him moving into this team fight, and yes, just about being able to take down Flandre off the back of 4 brutal auto attacks. But AL, I think that the way that Shanks ends up navigating this team fight as well proves out or proves to us why he was invested into, right? We've got this core of AL from a previous WE roster that have now moved into what is probably one of our top 2 teams in the LPL that are challenging the best team in the LPL so far.
And if you're the rest of those teams in Group Ascend standings, right, as we talk about this gap forming, you see anyone's legend knock down the 10-win team, right? And you're a BLG that just came off 2 series wins. You're a Weibo that seemed to start putting things together, right? You're JDG that many have called a sleeping giant. Closing that gap from the top spots, just going to make those underdogs below even hungrier.
It really is. They making, I mean, the gap for the pack below is going to seem smaller, but the gap to the first place gets a little bit closer. I mean, for AL to win this series, it gives them a lot of breathing room, right? Instead of teams below them finding a series victory and then being 1 win away, they're still 2 wins out, 3 wins out. And I mean, that's really, really important for AL, right? Like top 4 is the buy into the playoffs for whoever it is that ends up making it there. So getting these wins in early, I mean, top 4 in 19 or in 10 team round robins tends to be 13-ish, 12-ish maybe wins. So getting those on the board nice and early and being at 9 with still what is effectively 7-8 games to go, you'd be very happy with that.
And also for anyone's legend, the goals are loftier than that, than top 4. For them, it's playing for seeding going into playoffs. But we won't delve too much into all those conversations. We're only 1 game in. Instead, we will see that Shanks does bring home the player of the game for his classic Azir delivering in this one.
Yeah, this was when when he was on WE was the pick to go to,
Right.
and now, I mean, that's not changed as he's moved onto AL, and I mean, in these final fights, he's just pumping out so much damage. I mean, 139% damage to gold was incredible.
Incredible for a matchup that's headlined by names like Kanavi, JackeyLove, Tarzan, Flandre. It's the former WE prospect getting his big call up on a roster with championship aspirations, deciding a potential championship preview, or at least one from the past split here. But this series is far from over. Top Esports are a team that has been in the most full best-of-3 games this split so far in Group Ascend, and that's for a reason. They've fallen in a lot of game ones, but they've made the comeback. Can they do it against their main challenger for the top spot in Group Ascend? We'll find out more after a short break, and we'll see you guys for Game